I'm Carl Brookins. This is the Minnesota Crime Wave Presents. More talk about mayhem and crime and writing and similar important things. On my left, my co-host, Ellen Hart, writer of the Jane Lawless series, teacher at the Loft in Minneapolis. Been around in this business a long time. On my right, on your left, Kent Kruger, another award-winning, because Ellen is also an award-winning author, writes the Cork O'Connor series. We have an interesting program for you this time. We're going to spend a little time talking to Stu Wilson, who's the vice president of the Minnesota Friends, are very important organizations as libraries go. We're going to spend a little time talking about libraries. And what's the other thing we're going to do? Oh, yes, we're going to talk about plot. Very important plot. But let's start with libraries. The American Library Association, is the oldest library association in the world. There are 65,000 members. It's based in Chicago.
Didn't libraries begin in the United States? Wasn't it Benjamin Franklin who started the first lending library? But that's neither here nor there. Go ahead, Carl.
No, that is here. I don't know. You may be right.
Well, there was one in Alexandria.
Or it could be a lie.
Wasn't a lending library.
Yeah, I don't know.
You don't think there were libraries in Britain or in Germany at that time?
I think he began the Free Public Library.
Free Public Library, and they're not. Last March, the Public Library Association of America met in Minneapolis, and some of us went. We all went. Mm-hmm. They only meet every 2 years, but almost 10,000 people came to that affair. It was the 12th in the nation. That's a heck of a lot of people involved in libraries. There's every so often you hear libraries are dying. Nobody's giving any money to libraries. Nobody's reading anymore. Doesn't seem to be true. Our local library seems to be very busy. Hennepin County. For us, there are really 3 library systems, and I recognize that for some people who'll be seeing this in other parts of the world, that doesn't mean much, but we think we ought to talk about a little bit about the 3 library systems that mean the most to us. The first being the Hennepin County Library System, which is just amalgamated or absorbed the Minneapolis Library System. Minneapolis Library, Central Library is big, brand new building, huge, wonderful.
Beautiful.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
It has some really interesting things in it. In the Hennepin County Library System, there are 40 libraries. They have an at-home program. They bring books to people who can't get out. They have a children's bookmobile, and they have a library bookstore. They also have an organization called Friends, which is both in the city and the county. So there are lots of events. Now, one of the things about the Minnesota Crime Wave that a lot of people don't know is we go to a lot of libraries. Librarians rule, and that's an important thing to remember.
It really is true.
And so be nice to your local librarian. What else do I want to say about libraries? Do you know any funny? No.
So what are the other 2 library systems?
Well, all right. The other 2 library systems, Hennepin County Library System, I've already mentioned, 40 libraries. Ramsey County has 7 libraries. Their headquarters is in Roseville, not very far from where we do this program. They offer a lot of similar services, besides books that you can rent, books that you can take out free, and they also have, as do all the
libraries,
all
media, all varieties of media. They offer programs.
Imagine.
We've done a number of programs there.
There are in St. Paul, and then there's the St. Paul Library System, which has 13 public libraries. How many libraries is that? It's about 27 libraries within easy driving range of us. So the thing about libraries that's important is that they not only do they need our attention and our approbation, but they need our money. And one of the ways that you can contribute to libraries, of course, is by joining the Friends. And each of these library systems in the metropolitan Twin Cities area has a Friends organization, as does almost every library system in the world, at least in the country. And we know this why?
Because we often deal with the Friends of the Library who are responsible for bringing us to particular libraries.
And we go to libraries.
We've done hundreds of library events all over the country in the last 7 years, 8 years that we've been together.
Yep.
So
Yeah, you know, libraries are important to me not just because they're our bread and butter.
they are, yes, they are.
And you know, librarians, their role is changing now because of the internet and the availability of information that you used to only get from a librarian. But there are still functions that librarians will always handle that nobody else will. Case in point, when I was 12 years old, I was a Boy Scout. Working for my Reading Merit Badge, part of what you had to do was go to the library and volunteer your time. I went to my local library, this was in Lima, Ohio, to do my volunteer time. That was back in the days before computer check-in, and also I was date stamping books that had been returned, you know, ka-chunk, 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 ka-chunk. So I've been doing this for a while. The librarian comes up to me and asks the inevitable question, "So, Kent, do you like to read?" I said yes, and she said, "What do you read?" Well, the truth was, I read comic books. I didn't want to tell her that.
You and Stephen King.
Exactly. So she said to me, "Have you ever read The Count of Monte Cristo?" I left the library that day with The Count of Monte Cristo under my arm. I came back a couple of days later and I checked out The Man in the Iron Mask and The Three Musketeers, everything that Dumas had written. When I was finished with that, she said, "Have you ever read H.G. Wells?" I read everything by H. So that librarian in my 12th year really began guiding me along a path that has brought me to being one of the crime writers here today.
Yeah. Those
a
are
tortured path, indeed.
powerful people.
They really are.
Yeah.
A librarian introduced me to my very first detective story,
Freddie the Pig.
Freddie the Pig by Walter Brooks. That's right.
How did I know that?
I don't know how you do that, but we've you know, all of this stuff about librarians and libraries. We kind of introduced libraries and probably have now given everybody a whole lot of bad information, except that we know that librarians rule the world, and there's a lot more to talk about, and of course we will.
Seek out the programs at your local libraries.
Exactly.
Because they are some wonderful.
And they're online. If you're into computers, you can certainly find out all sorts of things, and their catalogs are online. Well, we'll return shortly with our guest, who happens to be part of the library's business. He's Stu Wilson. He's the Vice President for Operations of the St. Paul Friends of the Library, and we're going to talk about a very important function of that specific organization. But meanwhile, take a look at some of the upcoming topics that we all are going to discuss in future programs.